Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
All right, this is episode 256, and I guess we'll just kind of go into the news a little bit. We were going to have Frater O on the program again last week. He had the food poisoning, so we're having a call with him this week, so we'll probably have that episode ready for you next week. As far as the show goes, we actually celebrated our 5-year anniversary back in July, and I didn't even realize it, but I threw a little poster out anyway to kind of celebrate, about a month late to be exact. So it's been an amazing 5 years. We've had all kinds of stuff on. We've had a weekly show for 5 years, and we've only gone dark for Christmas and New Year's for the last 3 or 4 years. I think the first year we still did shows. I don't remember. It's kind of weird to not remember something like that. It's a podcast. I don't remember doing episodes. Here I am, a Freemason who started a podcast 3 years after he was raised. I kind of laughed because I thought about that for a second, and those guys over the Past Bastard blog had a really kind of a funny article. And normally I'm not one to read, I guess, this defaming kind of articles on the show. However, this week I did want to read one piece from, we'll call him PB to be a little more safe if you have kids in the room. But the article kind of hit home in the fact that it's really kind of funny. So we'll read that article and we'll come back for some more show. So again, I alluded to the fact that I really started this program about 3 years after I had been raised. And the Past Bastard blog, which is a satirical Masonic blog in which it's very much like The Onion, but it's all about Freemasonry. This article was called 2.5 Years Found Turning Point in Masonic Noobness. That's NEWB-NESS. Noob. A noob is a beginner at something, a newbie, right? So this is what it's saying. 2.5 years is the turning point in Masonic newness, So Choctaw Falls, Arkansas, researchers at the United States Chamber of Freemasonry have released the results of a study which shows that the average amount of time when a new Mason thinks he knows everything is about 2.5 years. Quote, "Yes, it will vary from lodge to lodge," explained Brother Ledge Porter. "But generally speaking, sometimes between 2 and 3 years, a Mason will suddenly believe himself to know just enough to start feeling a bit superior to the new candidates." We asked about the paradox that contrasts the results of the study to the truism that Freemasonry is a lifelong learning process. Quote, "No doubt that many of the guys don't actually believe that they know everything, but once they hit that critical juncture, they develop a certain feeling of smugness that they are well advanced. In fact, enough so that they can even start making moral judgments on new members' behavior." End quote. Noting that many Masons are asked to join the officer line within their first few years, we wondered if there might be a connection. "We haven't seen a solid casual connection," said Porter. "That is, we haven't figured out if being a new officer makes one a bit of a moralizing kind of guy, or if it takes 2 years in order to internalize the Masonic culture to the extent that one feels comfortable in making public corrections to the new guys." End quote. Porter added, "Of course, the smug satisfaction of correcting a newbie in public is something that sticks out with Masons throughout their Masonic career, so we don't expect this research to lead any cure. However, we think that this may have some usefulness because some of those who hit this juncture are not only making judgments about new candidates, but also about older officers. We think that it may be possible by examining such individuals to identify future Grand Lodge officers." End quote. Conte Calvino Gliostro. So the article actually didn't have much to do with the fact that 3 years after I became a Mason, I started a podcast. Rather, in my case, it's a little bit opposite, right? I started a podcast because I didn't know anything after 3 years. So now that we have 5 years of podcast, I've read all the papers that have been on this show in 5 years. That's quite a bit. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the fraternity, but I do acknowledge this is a lifelong process of learning. But I couldn't help notice the undertone of that piece, which addresses the problem of certain individuals who are out there who might make a new Mason feel not great, or this kind of smugness that happens sometimes when perhaps a new Mason says something on social media and is immediately called out in front of the world. How appropriate or inappropriate that might be is up to you to decide, but I think there needs to be a little bit less talking down and more on the level. All right, that is what we are all about. So if you tend to see that, or if you hear it in Lodge, remember this article maybe a little bit, have a laugh and a chuckle to yourself, but don't necessarily stand for it. We need to make sure that our new members are feeling like they belong, like they are actually learning, because they are. And just because they may have made a slight mistake in ritual or even an assumption based on some of our verbiage, it doesn't necessarily mean we need to make them feel this big. And I'm making a small motion with my fingers. So I hope you guys enjoyed that piece. Let's get on to a different kind of educational piece, something a little more edifying right now. So from time to time, I receive email submissions. I should say more than from time to time. Every day I get email submissions of papers and research articles that come to me to either be printed on the Midnight Freemasons, or they're looking for advice, or they're looking for editing, or just a general opinion on the piece, right? And I try to read these as much as I can. Some of them, I'll be honest, I start reading and then I have to put it on the back burner because it's not grabbing me right away. And that's not typically fair to the writer, and I usually let people know that it's going to be, in some cases, months before I get to your paper. This one, though, kind of just caught my eye, and I started reading it, and I really enjoyed it. I was going to consider it for the Midnight Freemasons, but I think we've hit on this subject a few times on the Midnight Freemasons. So I did want to read it on the show because I really enjoyed the paper. I think there was some really good, valid points in it, and I would encourage all of our listeners to really listen to what this brother has to say, question it, and let's discuss it on the blog page. I think it's a good paper. So it actually comes to us from Brother Robert Henry, who is out of Pee Wee Valley Lodge, number 829 in Kentucky. So without any further delay, this piece is called Enough is Enough. I'm not a young man, but I am a young Mason. I was raised November 2015. Joined the Scottish Rite in March 2016 and the York Rite last month. While traveling for work, I try to attend my home lodge, chapter, and valley as much as I can, as well as visit others along my travels. I also listen to Masonic podcasts, watch YouTube videos, read books, old papers, and blogs. I have participated in Masonic funerals and several other events in my state and district. I have read Morals and Dogma, although I still do not quite understand all of it, and am currently working on the Master Craftsman program. I have the enthusiasm and the excitement to seek light wherever it may come from. Showing my enthusiasm as a new Mason for the fraternity is my hope to cause you to reflect upon your time as a new Mason and that excitement that I hope you had. So with all of the excitement and energy that has been put into these efforts, unfortunately, I have noticed a disturbing trend developing in the articles, blogs, posts on social media, and podcasts as of late. The trend, which I believe is an age-old problem, is that of the sky falling, and that my beloved fraternity is dying. I have seen polls, questionnaires, podcasts, blogs, letters, and posts on Facebook that are prophesizing the end of the fraternity, all of which is quite depressing to a new Mason. I see this as an easy target to discuss, and perhaps this is partially the reason that I see so many articles. Most of these doom and gloom posts try to come across as motivational, call to ranks, but often fail, in my opinion, leaving a why bother aftertaste. This is unfortunately not a new topic that is bringing enlightenment to the readers. I have read articles dated as far back as 1896 about the impending fate of the fraternity. In an update by the Grand Lodge of South Carolina, in the Masonic Review and the Masonic Journal of Louisville, Kentucky, volume 85, dated 1896 and edited by T. Wrightson, I quote from page 226. Quote, "And Masonry began to decline not only in numbers but in condition, till in 1891 it reached the low water mark and numbered 4,944. It then fluctuated to 6,099 and again declined to 5,797, as shown by the report of 1894. Brethren, I ask you to examine the reports during all these years, and you will find that we were busy all that time manufacturing Masons. Where are they? I believe the number of unaffiliated in South Carolina is as great as the affiliates." End quote. Change the numbers and dates in the article, and this very well could have been published yesterday, as it sounds like so many of today's articles. Many articles point at a root cause and offer opinion to that end, or they call for more quality programs as it will lead to better numbers in the ranks. Perhaps less focus on quality as a driver of numbers and more focus on quality development of the present brothers will lead to a higher quality fraternity and might just attract new members as a byproduct. Brothers that are receiving quality programs use their trowels to spread the word, the great things that are going on. They also use trowels to spread the word when they're not receiving quality. Perhaps this is why some locations flourish while others decay. So for me, enough is enough. I refuse to get sucked into the Chicken Little chaos, and from this day forward, I am going to refrain from delving into or sharing materials that are presenting negatively about the craft. Some may call this a naive and perhaps a put-your-head-in-the-sand approach, but I believe to exert this much energy and time from the 2-foot ruler on the negative is wasteful. We are only given so much time to work in the quarry, and I have started a bit later in life than I wished I had. So for me, there is a sense of urgency to move forward working on the temple. Being aware of what is going on in the fraternity and its current events are important, but dwelling on and spreading a feeling of why bother is not my style, nor do I feel that it is what Masonry is about. We are not given the answers to the mysteries, but are set on a path of self-discovery for the answers, purposefully. Although we are a fraternity of brothers that work together to do good in the world and communities, each of us must also do our own work in the quarry for perfecting our craft. That is where developing one's craft begets more quality from those craftsmen that quarry next to you. Each brother improving himself and sharing that with everyone that he comes in contact with creates positive influence for the fraternity and society to emulate. Imagine if we all calcified positive messages for the world around us and less negative ones. I choose to work for quality and improvement over the easy target of numbers declining in the ranks. I am new to Masonry, and I want to climb the winding stairs, work in the quarry, participate in the digestion and distillation of Masonic knowledge and receive light, lots of light. I can see how some brothers could become discouraged with all the negativity and stop participating. I commend brothers like Robert Johnson, Todd Creason, Tim Hogan, Christopher Hodap, and so many others who are presenting and delving into interesting topics that spark enthusiasm into those of us that want knowledge from this fraternity. For those of us that still have more enthusiasm than negativity, I thank you. Brother Robert Henry, Pewee Valley Lodge, number 829, Crestwood, Kentucky. Well, there you have the piece. Brother Robert, thanks so much for the mention. To really name me among those other Masons is really, I'm honored to be named among those guys, but they've done so much more for the fraternity than, I ever could. But a great piece. I really enjoyed reading your thoughts. I hope everybody out there listening to the show enjoyed it. And I think there's a lot of truth there that even myself, I post things all the time that are negative about the fraternity, specifically, the piece I read just earlier in the program from The Past Bastard, which focuses mostly on the negative, but hopefully those articles come across as a chuckle and a call to action that maybe we need to be a little more serious about some instances or whatever it may be. I mean, their website says it, right? They address the idiosyncrasies of Freemasonry. But there is, some lighthearted fun, which I think is mostly PB. But there's also some really bad stuff out there when folks really start complaining to the point of making it depressing when we think about the future of the fraternity. I'm there at least once a month. I get a little bit bummed out about the fraternity and our direction and where we're going and where we were. And I'm not exactly sure what the answers are, but I think hiding our head in the sand is not a great option. But at the same time, celebrating the good things we do might just be a way to preserve what we have as a fraternity. So for all of you out there, if you've got a great paper or an opinion piece or something along those lines and you want me to read it on the show, I would be glad to. I would prefer it be no more than 2 or 3 pages, 12-point font. Double space is okay. If you want me to put it on the Midnight Freemasons, don't double space and don't indent. In any case, thanks so much, Brother Robert, for your great contribution there to the program. I really did enjoy. I did want to ask that any of our listeners who are really involved with esoterics, who might be familiar with Boda, the builders of the Adytum, if you're a member of that, shoot me a message. Full disclosure, I'm a member of BOTA or Boda myself, and I was just curious if there were any other Masons who listen to the show who may be a member of Boda. So if you are, please shoot me a message over at wcypodcast@gmail.com. I do want to thank everybody who's been donating and buying pins. It definitely keeps this show afloat, and this is how we keep the show going. It's listener funded, obviously. If I may, I would just like to mention very quickly the ways to support this show and the ways that we keep the show going. First and foremost, you can buy a lapel pin. I'm going to be putting up the description of the lapel pin, esoteric description that is, very shortly. In fact, I can tell you right now, currently the description reads, "Since the original sold out in just 48 hours, we have been hoping to offer these again. The good news is they are here. The new lapel pins are slightly different and of higher quality. Solid brass, 24 karat gold plating, hard-fired colored enamel, and a deluxe E-clasp for the pin back are what make this pin outstanding. All sales will be used to help us meet our funding goals, which will allow us to bring you more Masonic content. For example, new shows like the Esoteric Freemason, shows that focus on the Masonic history, and even conspiracies. It will allow us to form a publishing area as well. So we're looking to do that. The esoteric explanation of the pin is as follows. Kind of working from the outside in, the amount of symbolism within the pin is huge. So we have the triangular shape, which alluding to self, spiritual, material. It is also used to symbolize those first craft degrees. It is the outer triangle symbolizing the external. The red border, the color red, was used to symbolize the Holy Royal Arch degree. The words "Whence came you" are used in the ritual and were the words on my mentor's favorite bumper sticker. The secondary triangle, symbolizing the internal, inside of which is contained all of the other symbols and working tools. Inside man are all of the tools we need to build our temporal building. The square and compass, as in a ritual, the square to square our actions and the compasses to circumscribe and keep us within due bounds. The gavel, as in a ritual, to break off the rough and superfluous parts of life. The setting maul reminds us that death is near at all times. Work diligently. The plumb line reminds us of the rectitude of life and our actions. The all-seeing eye reminds us of the ever-watchful eye of the Creator. Also, to the mind's eye, from which emanate the rays of light. Now, the rays of light on the pin are 7, each representing the 7 liberal arts and sciences: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The rays emanate from the all-seeing eye, or the middle eye. Green is used because the color in Masonry is synonymous with education. The sprigs of acacia symbolize the perpetuation of life after death and the eternity of the soul. And the cipher symbol, the symbols of the pigpen cipher, translating to WCY. So there's your explanation to the pin. If you'd like one, head on over to wcypodcast.com and click buy a pin. We do have other ways to support the show. Of course, we are on back order right now for King Solomon's Reserve beard oil. It's an exclusive beard oil. It's a collaboration from Banker's Best and Whence Came You. 50% of the profits from this go back to this show, and King Solomon's Reserve is the original beard oil recipe with a fragrance specific to the exports of King Solomon's time and location. Black fig and honey give the tried and trusted oil formula a rich and luxurious scent that is truly fit for the first Grand Master. Now, I've heard several people have gotten in contact with me over this They're bummed out that it's sold out already. So Levi over at Bankers Best, bybankersbest.com, is producing more. So more on that as it comes out. You can grab yourself some Alpha Brain over at onitlabs.com. Please click through our links or they won't track the sale and they won't support the show. So if you want to support the show and get some Alpha Brain, you have to go to wcypodcast.com, click on support the show, and click the links. You can, of course, just send donations via PayPal. I've got a couple guys who donate every month, and those guys, I really can't thank you enough. They do reoccurring donations, and I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being this perpetual producer of the program, the PPP. So we've got freemasonryart.com, made in the USA, made by brother Juan Sepulveda of the Winding Stairs podcast and freemasonryart.com. He's also a co-host on the Masonic Roundtable with me, and he's a fantastic brother, and the only thing better than the guy's brotherhood is his art. What a style, what a great vision that he has. I would encourage anybody who is looking for Masonic gifts or anything of that nature. Maybe you just want something for your study or over your secretary's desk or for your lodge even, really. Check out freemasonryart.com. If you use the promo code WCY at checkout, you get 10% off, and Brother Juan helps us out also. And that's how you can support the show. So thanks very much. Before we go this week, I did have a few other things to mention. I did find out that the brother we read his papers last week, I received an email from a brother Mike, and he said that Richard Vega is the Grand Master of Nevada, Prince Hall. So that's really cool. My suspicions were correct that the papers we read last week were, in fact, from the Grand Master himself in Nevada, Prince Hall. So great papers, Brother Richard Vega, most worshipful Brother Richard Vega. Thanks so much for your great words and for putting those messages out there. And I also want to mention Brother Chris Cordery was on Facebook. He's a pretty active brother there, and he is looking for some help. What we've got is the Masonic Widow in Need. So the brothers of Terry Hout Lodge number 19 have been approached by the widow of one of the deceased brothers. She's come for help for his final expenses, which are significant. The lodge has already made a donation directly to the widow, but it's not enough. Freemasonry being a social fraternity with lodges and members all over the world, every member is under an obligation to come to the aid of each other when asked. Likewise, we're also obligated to help, aid, and assist the widows and orphans of our brothers who have passed on. So they have a GoFundMe site, and if you visit www.gofundme.com/2HRAY64, you can see this particular GoFundMe page. It looks like their goal is to raise $9,000. It's a trending campaign, so they're getting more and more donations. They've raised almost $1,000 already, and Brother Chris Cordery from Terry Hout, Indiana, or Terry Hoot, some people say, has been very active on this, and we've got several donations that are coming through for this. And I know every day Masons pass away, and there are so many people out there who need the help, and the monetary help, I should say. And why is this any different? It really isn't, but a brother has put this together to try to raise the money because it obviously means a lot to him and to the families and to the brothers out there. So if you are looking to contribute to something worthwhile to a brother, to a Masonic campaign, please consider checking it out. Brother Chris, thanks for your efforts, and Brother Bill Hostler, thanks for bringing it to my attention. If we can help out, we obviously will. So thanks very much. That's it for this week. It's a little bit shorter of an episode. Next week we've got a great conversation with Frater O, as I mentioned before, where he and I just kind of shoot the stuff, man. We go back and we hadn't talked in almost 2 weeks, and we just decided to record the entire conversation. So there's some funny parts, there's some serious stuff. We go all over the place, from consciousness to diet to esoterics and the future of Masonry, and we talk about all kinds of great stuff, and we got into some really nice stuff at the end there, where we actually started talking about the history of the Memphis Mizraim, and we talk about the York Rite College. So don't miss next week. It's going to be another great episode. Until then, you can please check out the Midnight Freemasons. Of course, we publish 3 articles, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I did miss an article this last Friday. I totally spaced, and I forgot to publish an article for Friday. My apologies. I will make that up with an additional piece, hopefully to go up on Saturday. So we'll have a Monday, a Wednesday, a Friday, a Saturday piece, and just to kind of have the no break in that many articles. I would like to continue to have at least the 3 articles every week. This upcoming Tuesday on the Masonic Roundtable, we're talking about trestle boards. It's going to be really fun. Trestle boards, of course, are the tracing boards, how we have our illustrations and what we teach our candidates, and it's our visual aid per se. It's going to be a good episode. I've got some great information that was passed on to me from Brother Fratero, and I'll use that as some of my research for the upcoming episode on Tuesday. Don't miss that. Thanks again for listening, everybody. You have no idea what it means to me that you have allowed me to be here and to bring this show to you. I sincerely have a gratitude attitude for all of you who listen. So thank you so much, and until next week, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.